I had to go into science to reject mainstream science, to go into this more kind of alternative type of science, to just go back to to faith again and to the divine, right? And to understand that that's also an inherent part of who we are.
Welcome to the QBC podcast, where we explore exciting new paradigms that have a meaningful impact on our day-to-day lives. I'm your host, Meredith Oak. Let's keep the conversation going. Join us in our free community by visiting qbcpod.com. That's qbcpod.com. And let's see where the quantum superhighway takes us next. All right, so I don't know what to say. The world is just pretty hilarious right now. As I mentioned on this podcast a couple weeks ago, we were deleted without warning off of YouTube. And people keep asking me, like, are you sure there wasn't a warning? And so I'm like, yeah, I went back into my email. And the last email I had from them was like, hey, creator, here are your analytics for August. And the next email I had from them were, your account has been deleted. That's it. Goodbye. So I don't know. There was no warning. But it's kind of funny because just this week, YouTube put out a big press release saying that, yes, in fact, during COVID, they were pressured to delete certain accounts for political reasons. And they're very sorry that they did that, and they will put them all back up. So I'm like, I clearly wasn't on, I guess talking about health makes you political these days. I don't know. I don't know why I got deleted. I don't know why it happened. But I will tell you this. They can say they're going to put everyone back up. But if they don't have a process to do that, then they're not actually doing it. And as of today, it's been over 2 weeks since I submitted my appeal, and I've heard zero things from YouTube, and there is no way to connect with a person. You just get robots telling you to file an appeal. You file an appeal, and nothing happens. So I'm done. I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll keep you updated. But what is funny is that you just never know what the unintended consequences of things are. So because of that, we have been uploading all of our stuff onto Rumble. Which reminds me, I know a lot of you were linking to the circadian basics on our YouTube channel for your clients to give them like a baseline understanding of circadian rhythms, and your friends and your family or whatever. It was like a quick, easy way to do that. You just click the link and watch the videos. So we have uploaded the circadian basics to our Rumble channel, and I will include the link to that in the show notes, or you just go to Rumble and do a search for that, and you'll find it. They're all there in a little playlist. So it's not quite as accessible as YouTube, but it's pretty close. People could just click the link and watch the videos. So I just wanted to let you know that I've had a lot of people reach out being like, I was using that for my business. So we have replaced it. Another thing that's funny is I had a note from Martin Moore-Eid, who is a circadian researcher with like 40 years experience. He was on the team at Harvard that discovered the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and now he's a consultant. And he recently wrote a book that we did a podcast about his book last year. And when we uploaded that episode to Rumble, I guess it triggered something. I don't know. A bunch of people watched it. A bunch of people bought his book, and he sent me an email saying, hey, I just had a spike in my Amazon book sales, and traced it back to that podcast being republished on Rumble. So listen, I don't know. Maybe these things all work out. I think that's kind of fun. On that topic, if you're involved in making lighting decisions for your home, your community, school, whatever, I do recommend Martin Moore-Eid's book. That's his last name is Moore, Moore, and Eid, E-D-E. And his book is just a very, very nice overview of all the circadian science. He's not a quantum guy. He doesn't go into that. So that's what makes the book perfect for mainstream organizations who don't need to be overwhelmed with all of that. They just want, like, if you're looking for a book that will give all of the references to all of the research and all of the reasons why you need to pay attention to lighting and windows and these kinds of things. The Light Doctor by Dr. Martin Moore-Eid, I do recommend. Okay, today we have, once again, Carrie Bennett. We had a really terrific conversation following up on our podcast that we did last year on the ether, where if you haven't listened to that, I really do recommend going to find it. Carrie just kind of breaks down why the concept of the ether which we think of as completely woo and silly and ridiculous, and all the materialist scientists will say it has been thoroughly debunked. Turns out not so much. So Carrie walks through why she believes the ether, which could also be called the 0 point field, is real in that episode. And then we sort of picked up the conversation in this episode. We also talk about what the practical implications of all of this science are in terms of living long, healthy lives. So enjoy my chat with Carrie. Don't forget to visit boncharge.com if you need anything to support your circadian lifestyle, and put QBC in the box at checkout. And of course, registration is open at the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology if you want to get certified and study the scientific foundations of quantum biology so that you can apply that lens to your area of expertise. Do check it out, iaqb.foundation. Okay, see you soon. Bye. Carrie Bennett, welcome back to the QVC podcast.
Thanks for having me back, Meredith. Great to chat with you.
Okay, so one of the most popular episodes, I think, that I've ever done was where you walked us through circadian biology into quantum biology, into what I like to say, undebunking the ether. I think there's a lot of things that are about to get undebunked in the coming years. So let's start with a recap of that, because it's a really profound shift. It triggered a lot of people. I got more comments on that back before we got kicked off YouTube. There were a lot of people on YouTube who were like, but the Michelson-Morley, I'm like, that is covered in the interview. Go back and watch it. And they were really angry that we could talk about the ether in a realistic way. But most people found it extremely profound and had a really intuitive sense that, yes, there is something more going on. Okay, so let's do it. Circadian, quantum, ether.
Perfect, right? Okay. So I think the way that we would categorize this based on, like if we wanted to call it categories, I would say understanding light leads people to this concept of understanding water. A truer understanding of water leads people to a truer understanding of this field of energy that energizes and informs our bodies, and just basically is all of creation. And so circadian, right? We are beings who need to know time of day in order to organize all the tasks in our body. And that's done by light, as you very well know. And this isn't a new concept. This is the thing too, that I think I want people to understand. Like, there is this thing called that the very first quote unquote circadian education I got was when I was in massage therapy school 20 years ago. And I was given an organ clock. A traditional Chinese medicine organ clock. It's like, oh, these organs are active at these times. And then they're, basically in their calmness period at these times. And I thought to myself, oh, that's interesting. That's funny. I mean, I never thought of it that way. I wonder how they knew that. And now it's like we're just getting a more detailed approach to, okay, so now we know that testosterone is at its peak at this time of day, and bowel movements are more likely here, but less likely here. And now we're more likely to have active metabolism versus repair metabolism. And all of these tasks, from the level of the organ in the body all the way down into the tiny, tiny cellular tasks and the functioning of the mitochondria, all of those are based and need the correct time in order to be able to know when to run, when to proceed, how intense or less intense, how active or in recovery mode do these things have to be. And that's reliant on light signaling. And that light signaling is that blue wavelength range of light that is changing. It's very small at sunrise, goes high at solar noon, and then goes down and away at sunset. And that timing, and in a period of darkness, that is the timing that we require to basically run all of our tasks and our programs to the best of our ability. That's that light signal that we need. So that's understanding how light informs our body. But there's another aspect of light that I would say is not as the same as what we call circadian, in that it keeps timing. And it's how light energizes our physical body. And there's many ways that happens as well. As you know, we can get that light to strike our skin, and we can, through the water that connects to the melanin in our skin, we can actually break that water up into something called molecular hydrogen and molecular oxygen. That hydrogen, that's a charged donor. That's an energy donor to my mitochondria. It calms inflammation, so it helps to conserve energy in my body and in my cells. And so that's when light strikes the skin. But the key intersection here that led me to water in general is that we've got that special type of water inside of us that Jerry Pollack really popularized, where that water becomes charge separated, or instead of water just being this neutral liquid in a glass, when light strikes that water, and that water has to be next to a water loving surface to do this. And we are water loving surfaces. We're full of water loving surfaces. Then when you have water next to that water loving surface, and then you add this input of infrared light, that water becomes negatively charged and pushes out an area of positive charge. And that negative and positive charge literally forms a battery of energy inside of us. And so that's where circadian leads us to understand information. Circadian and light gives us energy as well. And then that leads us to this understanding of this water. This water inside of us, Meredith, is special. It's a completely different type of water that now I categorize it. Some people call it structured. It can be called easy water. I call it liquid crystalline water, because that allows us to understand that liquid crystals have very unique properties. Properties such as being broadband frequency antenna. And I'm talking like, this is not woo-woo stuff. There's literally patents out there, right, for these types of things, right? So liquid crystalline based technologies are a thing where we can literally have very tunable, programmable antenna because of what liquid crystals can do. They're these antenna. They're data storage. So again, we've got this patents, holographic optical data storage based on liquid crystalline technology. We are these liquid crystalline data storage. Does my brain have the memories? No, right? Like the memories are in the field and we can retrieve them because we're these antennae and we can process them through our liquid crystalline water. That's my take and my theory anyways, which leads us to then what is this field around us, right? Well, it contains light, but that's a less than 1% of all the energy around us. And, we already have a podcast on the ether, but debunking the ether made it very easy for physics equations or for math, essentially, to model mathematical models of the universe. But it goes against what every ancient civilization ever talked about, was that there's this field around us that both surrounds us and permeates us, that is literally a source of energy and contains all the information that ever was and frankly ever will be, right? And so all the potential. And now that is why I was like, okay, so light informs our body. This water has special properties, and we have a direct connection from this water to this ether that is a source of energy and information. So energy and information from light, energy and information from the ether, water as this beautiful receiver, and we're water beings for a reason. And so that's like my general summary of where I am now with my understanding.
Oh my God. Okay. This is really amazing because it feels so true, right? Like, I think a lot of us walk around with these little pockets of like, I don't know, emptiness or like, okay, but like a gap. And it's because I feel like we've been cut off from like a cosmological understanding of ourselves and the universe. They've taken mythology away. We don't study myths anymore. We don't study
astrology,
all of the astrology, all of the ancient civilizations you referenced all had stories of creation, whether you took them literally or not, but it fed our souls in a way that we no longer have that sustenance through those stories. And I think we've tried to replace it with science, and the science that we have isn't filling that gap. But this model feels so different. Okay, so the light keeps our body in time. We know when to digest, we know when to sleep, we know when to repair, we know when to have energy, we know when to chill out. It also charges up our bodies because we are in fact liquid crystals. In the water inside of us could be described as a liquid crystal. And then, okay, I want to get into this part a little more. So then the liquid crystal is communicating with the light, which we really that's the charge and the circadian rhythm and all of that. And the ether.
Yeah, all of it. All frequencies.
And so is the ether a conduit for the light, or is the ether how can we
So I
think
mean,
about
like,
it?
people that I think sometimes want to say that light moves through the ether, but essentially light is just creating a disturbance in the ether. So we got to view the ether from it's the other thing that kind of is why I really like talking about the ether in conjunction with water is that I think they're fractals of each other, because the ether has been described before it was debunked, right? It was described as like this luminiferous superfluid. And so this fluid-based system. And so we're like, wait, this is fluid? Like, how is this fluid? Well, like, and like the silly analogy is the obvious one is like, well, how does the fish know that it's swimming in water? It's always been like that. And so now modern physics is catching up to the fact that that it has superfluidic properties to it. And so if I am water, I am in resonance. If I am a fluid-based system, I'm in resonance with other fluids. It's like the tuning fork effect, right? Like this tuning fork is going to be in resonance with a tuning fork that looks exactly like it and is the exact same shape because they've got what's called geometric resonance or shape resonance. We have a resonance and an innate capability that we've never been taught to quote unquote tap into the ether or connect more deeply into all of the energy and information that's part of the ether. But it's not part of we're not part of these wisdom teachings anymore, right? We're not getting this information passed down from generation to generation. But there's so many inherent aspects of us being water beings. Yes, we're liquid crystalline, so we are antenna. Yes, we're liquid crystalline, so we can actually process, transmit, take in data, and change it to fit whatever the energy system needs in the body, whatever information the body needs. So that liquid crystalline property is key, but we're also simply a fractal of water. But then a fractal of the ether? But what is the ether? We can call the ether God, right? We're a spark of the divine. Like we are divine in our inherent creation. And it's just now it's like it's like my understanding of religion and faith from a child. It was kind of like, yeah, I get it. But it's like, no, now I had to go into science to reject mainstream science to go into this more kind of alternative type of science to just go back to faith again and to the divine, right? And to understand that that's also an inherent part of who we are, because we are a fractal of the ether. We are a fractal of God, and that then leads to this whole other, I think, scary concept that people maybe there are nefarious entities that don't want us to believe this, and or it's just maybe considered too woo. But then that brings up concepts such as like telepathy, remote viewing, sitting in stillness and receiving an answer, asking for an answer and receiving an answer, because that's our direct connection. We are that closely connected to God that we can cultivate these. It's just a lot of people would call these like, psychic capabilities or you have to be spiritually gifted. It's like, no, these are built into all of us because of this, from my understanding, because of this blueprint, because of this fractal relationship. It's just we're never taught about it. We're never encouraged to explore it.
Yeah, that's true. And even when we are taught meditation, it's often not in that way. It's just about calming the mind and breathing and calming down. But you have to search pretty hard to find, maybe not for our audience, but the type of meditation that does encourage you to connect to those answers. And I guess for some people that's prayer. I was taught that prayer is talking and meditation is receiving.
Same.
Yeah,
so
it's really
what are the practical applications of all of this esoteric stuff, right?
Yeah, well, and it's because there are so many, and I think like it all comes together, right? Because part of the reason that we're cut off from that receptivity is because we're physically cut off by our modern life, which is cutting, which are bad light environment and bad EMF environments and bad toxic food and all of these things. When you look at it through this model, would be clogging the receptors for us to connect to the ether. And then you layer on top of that resentments and fear and, tribal based conflict that's manipulated through the media. And like you add, and it's like, of course it seems what we're talking about might seem totally impossible.
Yeah, it's very true. There's a lot about modern living that disconnects us from this. I mean, this understanding is not even it's not even taught, obviously, in schools, but there's a lot that about our modern living that just disconnects us from nature. And when we disconnect from nature, I think it really impairs our ability to receive more strongly. Even something like intuition. That one of the coolest things that I see when people return to understanding how to get the light signals to signal energy and information to their body, how to earth and ground and go outside and be in the shade of the trees, because we'll teach them that there's near infrared that gets reflected off of the greenery and helps their mitochondria make melatonin. It's like we teach like the science of connecting back to nature, but what's not taught, but what inherently awakens in people is this intuitive or right-brained aspect of what I think we're really lacking these days. I think science, that very left brain teaching disconnected us from the capability to tap into intuition on a stronger level. And so the coolest thing I hear from people is, I'm not outsourcing my body's needs anymore. I'm not outsourcing it to an app or to a clinician or the latest guru or the protocol or whatever it is. I can now literally, because of strengthening that connection to nature and having that more right, I think more right brain, capabilities, they're all the answers come to them. It's like they intuitively will reach for a supplement that they may not have taken in, in a year, right? This cell salt. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden my body's asking for this cell salt. Or they'll say, it's like, what diet? It's like, it's not a specific diet. They know how to nourish themselves. They know what their body is asking for. They inherently know how much light their body needs or does. It's like, it's just a really cool thing. It's like, I love it as a clinician. Yes, do I want a robust community because I love engaging with people? And certainly I make a living doing this and teaching this and having people pay for, me being in community with them. But if you're good on your own, I am thrilled. That's the goal of it all, is to get people to the point where they can cut through all the BS that it's projected into us from media, from conditioning, from societal quote unquote norms, so that they can actually, I think, tap into this greater information so that they can just do what is best for their bodies, for their families, without outsourcing it to someone else.
I love that. I think that's absolutely the path. And so many, practitioners and coaches and clinicians that we interact with, I think, see it that way. It's like, there's different phases. You need like very clear, strong guidance in the beginning, but over time, yes, the goal is to connect with yourself and with the environment, which is the ether, so that you can interpret the signals from your body yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Exactly.
So, okay, you mentioned something before I turned the recording on, which I totally agree with, which is that we will all be called to be our best selves over the coming year. Mm-hmm. We're just at a moment in history, I think, day-to-day history, but also cycles of cosmology. Like there's things happening at every level, and we are alive for it. So let's get into the practical sort of applications of all of this, because for those people listening to a podcast like this, and I'm sure you listen to lots of other ones as well, like we're all here doing this for a reason. Like we need to tap into this vibe, so to speak, because we're going to need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot
and it can be fun. I'm not trying to be scary here.
Oh, no. This is not Y2K like fear, right? End of civilization as we, right? No, this is not that vibe. In terms of like, let's just call it out, right? In terms of the greater cycles, there are cycles that are 25,900 years in length, right? And these grander cycles are periods, it's like an ellipse. There's periods where humanity comes into a greater awakening, and they go into then a greater period of darkness and kind of forgetting. And we are, if you're looking at it from that cycle, we're like in this beautiful period of awakening, and awakening beyond where we were before, where there is an energetic input that is helping us, I think, to remember more than we ever did after coming out of a period of forgetting. And, you know, it might sound weird and it might sound stupid, but look into it, right? Look into these cycles that, again, ancient civilizations knew about, right? And they knew about these cycles. They are literally depicted on walls that are, you know, 10,000 years old. That these are people were aware of these things. It's just we're finally now, I think our forgetting is lessening. I think we're all here to help ourselves remember and help other people remember. And the energetic input is such that we are more capable than ever to utilize the shifting energies for our benefit. But with shifting energies, with more intense energy, this is also yin and yang, right? With more intense energy comes the potential for more intense chaos. And so how can we make sure we steady ourselves in the chaos in order to really fulfill what we came here to do?
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's exactly how I've been thinking about it. I was just talking about even the framework of quantum biology as a stabilizing framework, right? Like it's you don't want to grab it too tightly. On the other hand, it does act as a structure to hold a lot of new information and help us make sense of it. So our consciousness isn't fractured by like, what? you know, I've been reading a lot of hardcore scientists who went down the rabbit hole and had a serious dark night of the soul because it called into question their entire identity as a person. And, you know, I think if we can familiarize ourselves with some of these frameworks, that the darkness of that night can be a little alleviated. And also we can feel better. So we have the energy. So let's talk about all of this in terms of, let's just start with the idea of aging, you know, and, you know, most people, you know, things start to happen and they go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, you're getting older. That's just it.
Yeah.
So let's reframe that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's multiple things that have been studied in relationship to aging, right? So like they've looked at telomere length, which is, you know, the ends of our DNA. And when we're young, they're longer. And then those telomeres shorten. And that leads to, you know, changes in the DNA that can ultimately, so there's a genetic basis basically for aging. There is what's called a senescent basis for aging, meaning we get these cells that are damaged but can't clear themselves from a tissue, and they stay in this tissue and they just secrete inflammatory signaling and really lessen the functioning of a tissue. And you get enough of these, and again, that's going to lead to what the quote unquote diseases of aging. You also have a more mitochondrial based approach to it, meaning if the mitochondria are living inside of these cells and these organs and they're not able to adequately both provide enough energy for that tissue to function optimally, and they're also then not able to clear up at the metabolic damage that's occurring naturally throughout the day, but also in conjunction with other insults to the body, toxins, electromagnetic radiation, things like that, that will over time lead to aging as well. And there's one final one. I'll tell you which ones I really resonate most with. But there's one final one as well. And again, we're talking a little esoteric here, Meredith. So we're going to go with the concept of there is truly an energy that we do derive from the ether. There is a life force vitality. It's, you know, chi, prana, ki, you know, you name it. It's vital force, right? It's been called different names, but we actually can tap directly into it. But that is tapped into more through things like how we're breathing. It's tapped into through how we think and conduct our lives. And that's also, if you're taking a modern spin on it, look into the work of Dan Winter about literally, we are always designed to implode this into our physical bodies and then distribute it and implode and distribute. But in order to do so effectively, so that we are quote unquote more negentropic or more syntropic or more self-organizing, as opposed to chaos inducing or chaos creation. So I would say aging here could be my body is in more chaos than I can reorganize back. And that life force, that toroidal field of energy that surrounds us in our biofield, that's full of this life force energy, we can actually help to organize the implosion of that life force into us in a more organized way, or we won't. And that's actually done through more of a David Hawkins scale of consciousness, meaning that we are living our lives not in shame, fear, guilt, anger, hatred, apathy, but instead we are trying to have a fundamental state of peace, of joy, of bliss, and of authenticity. Those are the top ones. And so it's not like, love you, I love you no matter what, even though you hurt me. It's like we can still emote, we can still be authentic, but it's what is my baseline state that I return to? And we want it to be peacefully authentic, basically. And that is also how we can implode more life force energy. So we're self-organizing. So those are the people who are, have cultivated some sort of, usually they've cultivated some practice of meditation or breath work, or for example, like loving kindness meditation. They've cultivated some practice where they're 85 years old, but they look like they're 60, right? And it's because they can literally sustain self-organization through this coherent energy in their biofield coming into their bodies and being life force for their bodies. Or it's those people who live angry, they're in their 50s, they're angry, they're grumpy, they're just or they drive a lot of fear, and they look like they're in their 80s, right? I mean, we've all been across people like that in our lives, and I think it's a very interesting thing. And there's actually, if you look back into ancient texts, they'll talk about people living till 200 years or older, have still full of vitality. And I think it's because they cultivate, number one, they don't have the same exposures that we have in terms of our modern living. But at the same time, I think they cultivated the practice of knowing how to take that energy from the ether, that life force, and harness it for their body's self-organization as opposed to chaos.
That makes total sense to me.
Good. Because sometimes I don't know, Miriam. Sometimes I don't know. But then from the quantum biology perspective of this, it's like, I really truly think our mitochondria and also the status of the water, because mitochondria make water. That's their version of making energy for us. So if we can allow them to make water appropriately and maintain that water battery inside of us, and the mitochondria also make melatonin in our cells, which clears up damage. If we can help the mitochondria through the lens of quantum biology maintain healthy water production and healthy melatonin production, I think that goes a long way towards preventing excessive aging, right? And also at the same time, the practices that we teach in quantum biology are the ones that, like you said, I think they help to bring order to the chaos. They give us a framework through which we can then get into nature and understand the why behind why. It's like, I needed a reason to go outside. I needed a reason to touch the earth. I needed a reason to go into the forest. And so that quantum biology framework, I think, is huge when it gave me the reason, the why. And as I started to do it because I really believed in the why, then all these other beautiful changes occurred as well.
Yes, and it all connects back together. I think, sometimes people hear we get focused on a certain type of information that we need to learn, light, what I should be eating. And then we, just the way our minds work, we put little blinders on and make it all about that. And then we come out and realize, oh no, everything else matters too. I was just needed to focus on this in order to integrate this piece. So I love that your description there, because it really is, it's holistic. It's the whole piece. I mean, I was just realizing recently that I was sort of not over invested, but deeply invested in, the cognitive piece and the spiritual piece, and totally mostly ignoring my biology. And it's so I wasn't cultivating the capacity that I needed to hold all this energy. And I'm realizing now that was a big part of the chronic fatigue. So we just keep circling to all of the things that we need. And I'm thinking too, because you were mentioning how what we would term psychic, and have somebody needs to have special psychic abilities, but maybe that's our natural state. And then drawing the line over to aging, it's like maybe those outliers who live 100 over to be over 100, maybe they're the natural state and we're the ones, and dying in your 80s is actually unnatural. Like, who knows?
Yeah. No, I love that take on it. I think that you're spot on. I think we equate normal or what's typical, what we call normal or typical, with what's natural, the way it is, right? And I just think that I don't think we've been empowered enough to actually explore. It's it's the concept also of like the 4-minute mile, right? That example where it's like, no one's ever going to run a sub 4-minute mile. No one's going to ever run a sub 4-minute mile. Then a sub 4-minute mile is run. And then you've got dozens of people in the next year. And then the next year, like everyone now knows, oh, I can run a sub 4-minute mile if I train hard enough, right? Or if I have that type of talent in me. And so it's like, we just are not, we're not given the opportunity to think, oh, I can, like, it's normal to live to 150. And not that aging, and I don't want people to think that aging's not bad, right? Like, I don't want to be 20 again.
God, no.
But that being said, but I also think that we're not even given the tip of the iceberg when it comes to our potential as humans.
Yes. No, it's funny you use that word potential. Yeah, I came to that just last week. I'm like, that's really what all of this is for, is to like raise the ceiling on what we think that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we looked at aging. Let's look at let's sort of go back in time to hormones in midlife and the fertility years. How does all of this play into our hormones?
Yeah, I think a huge part of hormone imbalance these days absolutely is the light environment. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there's endocrine disruptors, right? So I'm not going to tell you that you can get your light environment optimized and then also wear a bunch of body lotion, like artificial body lotions, or you get it, right? You get the concept. And so I think, like you said, it's all the things, but how does light play into this? Light is a signal. It's an information signal about essentially when we're supposed to produce hormones throughout the course of 24 hours. And if we've got the correct light signaling, we will surge sex hormones at the right time to optimize our energy and our fertility, and just hormone balance in general if we're not in those hormonal years anymore, or those fertility years anymore. And when we have incorrect light signaling, we get incorrect hormone surges that now will lead to things like estrogen dominance. It can lead to an increased risk for things like estrogen or all types of hormone-sensitive cancers, frankly. But we see an increase in things like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer. And so the light piece that I think is fundamental. And what I love to see is that as people do these light practices, one of it can take a while. Like, it can take literally 10 months for this to happen, but people will start to say, oh, I'm back to a 28-day cycle. I'm ovulating on a full moon. I am, having my bleed menstrual cycle on the new moon. And like, that's again, we're designed to be in touch with those signatures of energy, the light, the lunar cycles. And as we engage more with healthy light practices, we not only get the correct daily release of our hormones and production of our hormones, but we get the correct monthly release, if you will. And then from a circadian perspective as well, we'll get all of that balanced out. And so light, I think, is fundamental to the hormone story. And we can go into the exact details of what and why and how, for example, over a 24-hour clock, that happens, and what we're doing in modern life to derange it. But light, I think, for the hormone balance is fundamental.
Okay. So yeah, let's just give us a quick picture of that 24-hour clock then.
So we're designed at sunrise. At sunrise, there's the correct light signaling in terms of the amount of blue and red and the brightness for our brain to say day has started. Let's surge our energizing hormone. And that's called cortisol. But cortisol is one of a whole group of sex hormones. So cortisol is a sex hormone, also called a steroid hormone, that starts with a hormone at the top of it. Well, it starts with cholesterol, right? Cholesterol is the backbone of all of our sex hormones. But when the body perceives that the day has started, then the mitochondria in our adrenal glands and in our reproductive organs, they start to make the very top sex hormone called pregnenolone. And then that pregnenolone gets divvied up into all of the hormones that we typically call sex hormones, like estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone. And it also becomes cortisol, because we need a healthy surge of cortisol in the morning to go into the blood, because that is what I call the chemical resonance signature of daytime, right? It surges into the blood, cortisol vibrates at a certain resonance. Certainly it may dock into receptor sites as well. And the body knows that the day has started. And based on the amount of cortisol, it's a way that we track daytime, the morning, if you will. And then the cortisol will start to level off and drop. And so that we're not going to have it elevated in the evening. But when cortisol surges in the morning, it's going to surge. We need that stimulus of sunrise light, that morning light signal, in order to have that enough pregnenolone in the first place to become adequate cortisol and adequate steroid hormones. A lot of people aren't getting that. I wasn't, right? I had flatlined hormones, low energy, low libido, cycle imbalances, you name it. And so when I started to get that morning light, one of the first things that came on was my energy, because my body was naturally making that cortisol. What I also recognized that my body needed, besides just getting that signal that the day has started, was I had to give my body safety signals. So earthing and grounding is a safety signal, because I'm connecting to the Schumann resonance, for example. I'm geolocating my body on the planet. And then I gave myself breakfast. And those safety signals, my body was able to say, okay, day has started, so we're going to make cortisol. But we also know that Carrie is not in a threatened state. So we don't have to overproduce cortisol. Because if we overproduce cortisol, it's at the expense of the other sex hormones. And so we're going to produce a circadian appropriate surge of cortisol. And then we get to take the rest of the pregnenolone and divvy it up into all of the other hormones of fertility to optimize where Carrie's at in her menstrual cycle or her monthly cycle. So that's what starts to happen if we use that morning light signature and we give the safety signals to the body. If we, conversely, what was happening at night as well, what happened for people, because people can have low hormones during the day, they can get a second wind at night and also have symptoms of estrogen dominance. And it's all related to misinformed light signaling, essentially the wrong light signaling into their bodies. Because I wasn't getting that morning light, but I was definitely getting plenty of artificial light at night. And when we get that artificial light at night, the brain says, oh, has the day started again? Like, is it the middle of the afternoon? What time of day is it? I thought the day was long enough that we should be going to bed. So melatonin gets suppressed, cortisol surges again, but cortisol doesn't surge by itself. When you get that surge of cortisol, you get a secondary surge at the wrong time of day with all of the other steroid hormones. And over time, with the suppression of melatonin, that would predispose people to hormone imbalance and also these hormone sensitive cancers that we see as well. So it's a light story, a huge piece of it is a light story when it comes to getting the correct signaling of hormones raising when they're supposed to raise, being suppressed and raising melatonin when it needs to be elevated, and then giving those safety signals as well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I obviously talk about this topic a lot, but every time I'm just like, wow. And if anything else that we're saying or you hear is like, you're like, what are they talking about? If one thing lands, it's just the light, right? That one piece can have such a deep and profound effect on our physiology and our biology. And I think every time I hear it, it's like I'm making up for never having heard it for the first 41 years of my life, right? Now I need to hear it all the time. And it ties into all the other things you're talking about so beautifully. But yeah, it's a tough one because we are surrounded by people who have no idea. And you just want to be like, please.
No.
But, it is.
Eventually,
it is what it is.
We are reaching a critical threshold. Speaking of the ether, what's in the ether? It's this morphogenetic field of human consciousness and human awareness. And if enough of us start engaging with this information, we will reach that 100th monkey effect. We will get that critical threshold of the number of us that need to have this awareness for it to all of a sudden just essentially be a normal download into all of human consciousness. I truly believe that's the case. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're approaching it. I'm hopeful that we're approaching it soon.
I agree. I think I mean, just in the last few years, it's shifted so much. I just had somebody this week send me a link to an article in The Economist that was like, should we maybe change the public health recommendations on sunlight? And they cited the Swedish study.
Oh, no way. They pulled up all that. That's
all of
great.
it. They pulled it all up. And then, of course, they had the requisite paragraph. We don't have enough information and we need to be careful. And we don't really know the mechanism of all of this and blah, blah, blah. And then you're reading that and you're like, well, we do actually. You just haven't looked into it.
Right. But the fact that that's even an article is huge.
But the fact, yes. And 90% of the article was focused on the benefit of sunlight, with the requisite disclaimer from someone who wasn't into it at the end. So, yeah. And that was in The Economist, for goodness sake. So, yeah, the shifts are coming. So yeah, I'm curious, like you have been, coaching practitioners and working with clients really focused on this for years. And what are you seeing? What are some of the common things you see? What are some of the anomalies? And, at the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, we have so many different types of practitioners who all layer in this perspective, right? Because it's a lens. It's not a modality. So just share what comes to mind.
Oh gosh, it's an interesting question. Number one, I think if you're starting off with this, it is helpful, like you said, to have the guidance of a clinician who is well-versed in these strategies we're talking about, because I will get people to come, and this is no judgment on them in any capacity. They're all lovely human beings, but they'll say that they're doing all the things, right? And and sometimes that's not even close to being true, right? It's like, I'm occasionally going outside in the morning. I'm not blocking the artificial light before I wake up. I'm not as good with blue blockers at nighttime, or like, I'm doing all the things, but I haven't bought a pair of blue blockers yet. It's like, that's where it's like, okay, these are like, here are the really foundational things that I really want you to focus on. But then, and light is a foundational tier. But for me, light and mindset go hand in hand, right? So it's like, I also need someone to stop claiming identity with my Lyme, my Hashimoto's, my, whatever condition that they've been labeled as having. And so I think that there's that we do tout light. And for some people, 3 days of changing their light environment literally changes their lives. I've heard that so many times. It's such a blessing to be able to share this information and have someone have such a profound effect like that. But sometimes for some people that can, you got to add in a couple more things or do things a little bit differently. Like it's not, you're not following the best light protocol for you if you don't have the blue blockers or whatnot. So there's that. I also then have people who do the light stuff, but there's, I think understanding the water and optimizing that water in the body is foundational. I think there's a huge piece where we want to not think that EMFs are impacting us. And I'll have people who will sleep with wearables, right? Who will, or like have their cell phone next to their pillow and stuff. It's like, and so there's these things where you're just like, I think that is where a clinician comes in and can say, there's some things that I'm really glad that you're doing correctly. And I think in a really, really potentially beneficial way for you, but let's dive a little bit deeper now. So it's sometimes it's easy to hear a podcast and be like, okay, I'm gonna do all the light stuff, but we do need someone to maybe hone in on the other things as well. But also I'll hear, well, I go out in the sun and now I'm just exhausted all the time. It's like, I'm tired. Like, why am I so tired? Because I'm getting more sunlight. Why am I tired after getting red light therapy? And that's where I'll say, your body now is building, in our world, we call it redox, which is just adequately charged water or adequate energy inside the body to finally tell your body to calm down, get parasympathetic so we can heal, right? The body had been in such either a depleted state because that energy, key source of energy had been so drained. And likely at the same time, there is an aspect of the nervous system that is dysregulated in one capacity or the other. Sometimes it's both, on go, both on break, one really driven. So that nervous system through light and earthing especially comes back into balance. And when that happens, the body says, okay, this nap is that you feeling tired and wanting to nap after your light exposure. It's not pathological or dysfunctional. It's because your body has the energy and the nervous system balanced out to finally go in and heal. And so there's like a lot of little tweaks and things. And there is this coaching that we need to do when it comes to helping people through this, because it sometimes, like I said, it's a beautiful, like, I've healed in 3 days story. And a lot of the time it's let's continue to, progress you through this lens that we've used with so many people that we know is beneficial. It's foundational human health, human signaling, human energy optimization, but sometimes it takes a little longer. There's other tweaks we need to do.
Yeah, you want to get to the point where you're so in touch with your body that you understand. However, if you're at at a point in your journey where you're not there yet, absolutely, please, like, join a group, work with a practitioner, get a health coach. Like, we need guidance in the beginning, because there are these other things, and you do something for a while and then something pops up or something happens and it's like, oh wait, what's this about? And it's like, okay, it's leading us to the next direction that we need to head.
And people view, when symptoms pop up, people view them as like, we have this framework that right now where we think that they're bad. It's like, my body's not working again. Like, I was doing so what? It's like, no. Sometimes there's actually a reversal of the symptoms reappearing in the reverse order, right? Because that's very, very homeopathic type thing just to see when you're working through homeopathy. It's like this reversal. It's like, okay, whatever you were experiencing first, maybe it was debilitating stomach pain, that clears up. And then all of a sudden the migraines pop back up again. But like, it's your body kind of going back through, like, healing things. Symptoms will reappear transiently, but if then we do things to suppress them, the symptoms, we actually kind of can delay the healing response. So this is where we're kind of working people through just the mindset of healing. Healing is, for some people, yes, it's basically a miracle. For other people, it's not linear in any capacity. But I've now seen enough people work through this process. For the first year, a lot of trial and error, a lot of just getting, like, how can I live my life in each season to be more engaged with the light, to build exclusion zone water? How do I earth and ground in the various seasons, and it takes a year to oftentimes tap into non-native EMFs and what we can do to minimize or mitigate those. And then the second time through, so there'll be some healing for sure. Second time through, now there's more confidence. Like, okay, now I know it's spring. Now I know what I'm going to do with building my solar tolerance on my skin, all these things, right? We go through it. And then that third year, so there's this evolution that happens. And if people are willing to stick with it, it gets, each year it gets better and better and better. But it sometimes does take a while to go through it. And that's where it is helpful at first, at least, to have a clinician to be like, listen, what you're experiencing isn't weird. Your body's not broken if your symptoms reappear. Let's dive into that through these different lenses of what your body could be telling you. And just know that if this is your first 3 weeks doing this, or your first 3 months doing this, that your body's at the tip of the iceberg of getting its benefits, because the benefits just continue to add on to each other. They compound each year.
Yes. It's a journey.
It's always everything.
It's not a destination. We have I think we have milestones on the way, but it's all a journey. I just had that happen this week. I had a week period where, just between world events and energy and where I'm at personally, I went very internal and really, like, backed off doing a lot of work and doing a lot of stuff. And on the final day of that, I was so sick. Like, I had, like, a raging headache. I had chills. I was nauseous. And I'm like, I know I don't have the flu. Like, I know I don't. I know what that feels like, and this isn't it. And I had to sleep basically all day. And I woke up the next day and I felt better than I had before it all started. And I'm like, I don't know what that was, but
a beautiful purging that your body
seems
innate
to
intelligence.
Be something what you're describing.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I love that. All right. So as we wrap up, like, any last thoughts coming to you?
No, I mean, I think
Is there anything you want to share?
I think we touched on a lot of great stuff here. I think I just want to reemphasize that I have been grateful for finding quantum biology and diving into it, because it did provide the necessary, it and still is providing the necessary framework for me to live my life, for my health, for my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. It's really providing a comprehensive framework. And the one thing I love about this and teaching it to people who are willing to really engage with this information and apply it is that it's, like you said, it's not necessarily a quick fix. It is a lifestyle, but it's a lifestyle that I don't hear people being like, oh yeah, I'm going to stop wearing my blue blockers, or, oh yeah, I'm not going to go out and get the sun anymore, or that morning walk. Yeah. What a waste of my, like it. Right. So it truly is nice to give people and teach people a framework that is something that is, it really truly is life transformative, because it gives me not just I'm going to try this latest fad. It's like, no, I think I've really found things that my body is fundamentally asking for on a regular basis. And so that's just really rewarding as a clinician, but just, it's kind of just empowering as a human as well, to be like, okay, I'm not searching for like the next, what's the next product or the next hit supplement or whatever it is. It's like my body is way more regulated, I think, because I've truly found a lifestyle that is both healing, and once you heal, the body continues to thrive in. So
yes. Yeah, it's how we're meant to be. And so we're returning home.
exactly.
We're not like trying some new thing. Thank you so much, Carrie. As always, such a delight. You can find Carrie on Instagram at Carrie B Wellness, and on the internet, carriebwellness.com. And Carrie is also the lead faculty at the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, which is a practitioner certification. So if your interest is piqued, do check that out. That's at, you can find everything at qbcpod.com. Carrie, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me,
I feel like we're just at the beginning.
We'll do this
We're
again
at the beginning
sometime, right? We'll do this again. We'll check in like on this podcast again in like 6 months, be like, okay, now what has transpired?
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology certification, a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.